So, like, how do Republicans combat this? Because obviously, their Democrats are always going to have the upper hand when it comes to the mainstream media, right? Or I guess I guess actually legacy media is probably the better term for them because no one in my generation or below is actually watching them at this point, right? So let's say they have cover from the legacy media nonstop. They constantly violate their own standards. So, I mean, what are Republicans really to even do about it?
Well, you know what? It was you mentioned Rush earlier. So back in the late '80s when he hit the scene, it was the same way. And what he would say is because back then they were talking about we got to provide equal time to him. He can't have 3 hours on the radio all by himself. And his answer was, "No, I am equal time. Everything else is left. I'm the equal time." And and he goes, and anyway, when I talk about these issues, I describe the left better than they describe it themselves. So I'm doing both sides anyway. But he was equal time, and it created an entire new media outlet that is still growing. And we've just got to leverage and just lean heavily on the new media.
Well, it's funny you say, he described them better than they described themselves. That is a common occurrence, right? Like the right actually does understand leftist talking points all the time, right? And I always found it funny when I had a friend who was on the left who was trying to, have a discussion with me and it would get stuck on a talking point. And I would like walk them through basically, no, here's the counterpoint to what I just said. And here's what you should be telling me because this would be hard for me to answer.
Well, see, that's what used to be great about debate and debate teams is you were forced to defend positions that you didn't agree with, and you learned how to dig into all sides of an issue. Now, debate teams they don't even. There was one the other day. They won the whole whatever the contest was by not debating at all because it was a taboo issue that they shouldn't be talking about. I mean,
So
oh, that one
I,
really burned me up.
that is absolutely insane.
And
No,
I know, and I
it's funny
keep I keep
because
using words like I'm astonished and speechless and all these things, but it's just something ridiculous and more ridiculous every day.
well, it's one of the things where like I don't have it easily able to get to at the moment, but down on my bottom shelf, I have a whole series of books that are like, well, I consider like the evil books, right? So I have what the left calls the Bible of critical race theory, called critical race theory, and I've gone through that and I've read through their own talking points. Now, what was amazing about that book was, I swear to God, it is just basically Mein Kampf, but replace Jew with white person, and it pretty much lines up with that. Which there actually was an organization that took quotes from Mein Kampf and then changed up Jew with white and male and cis and all that stuff, and they got multiple awards from Harvard as well as like a couple other universities, which was hysterical to me. I think they call it like the Circle Square hoax, which is, you should look it up, really awesome. But like I have that, I have the Communist Manifestos down there as well. I do have, Mein Kampf. I have it. I've read through it. Terrible, evil book. But listen, it's important that we actually understand what led to these atrocities. It's important that we understand what the people we disagree with are thinking in order so we can combat it. Jordan Peterson, he does this interesting thing whenever he gets a question about like one of these topics like this. Even when it's someone who agrees with them, he'll do this. He'll be asked something like, well, how would you like address this? Because I'm dealing with these kind of people in my class. And Jordan Peterson would always say, well, first off, they might have one good point here, here, and here, here. But the issue with that point is, and then he'll go on to describe it. And I found that almost kind of fascinating with the way he would always word that. It would always be, here is where this person I disagree with, here are the points that actually have some, validity to it, but they just don't work out because of X, Y, and Z. And it's funny, the right will do this all the time. They'll be able to point out, the actual concerns people might have, and then just say, but the reason why those views don't work is because of this. While the left just straight up just says, you're a Nazi, you're evil, you're a bigot, you just hate these people. If you try to say, hey, we should maybe cut some of the welfare programs because it will actually help these communities, not hurt them, they'll say, no, you don't actually even believe you're helping them. You are intentionally trying to hurt them. They don't give you any benefit of the doubt whatsoever.
No, that's I've got no argument against that, and so I guess I'm supposed to now look for how would I argue against that, but there's no rebuttal because you're absolutely right, And that's the way they've been framing arguments again forever. You can use what maybe it's baseline budgeting we'll talk about. So on the right, we would say, okay, instead of this department increasing by 8%, we should only increase it by 6%. And immediately the press would run out and call it draconian cuts. Republicans want to do this draconian measure, and then obviously it's going to be minorities, women, and children hurt the worst, right? That's how every headline goes. And so it doesn't matter what you try. That press is gonna do what they do. So the alternative media outlets that we have now are more than we ever had. I mean,
which is great.
There's far more people when you see, and the fact that they call Joe Rogan far right is crazy. Joe Rogan is not far right. He's not conservative at all.
He's a leftist.
But look at the reach that he's got, and then you look at the things that Daily Wire is doing and the reach that they've got, and you look at the Blaze and the reach they've got, and so I think the problem we have on the right side of this is we won't stop fighting each other long enough to come together and fight the left, and this election is a big part of it, and you can see it on clear display. When it comes down, they will circle the wagons on the left every time. They're going to defend their side. They're going to fight for their side. If our side had fighters like they've got, that they'll do whatever it takes to win, because winning is all that matters.
Well, I mean, it's because they're collectivists.
I think we should get along.
I'll say they're collectivists. We're individualists. All right. So, like, if we have disagreements, we're more open to talking about those, which can unfortunately create a slight divide in our party. While they don't have disagreements, because anyone who has a disagreement, they immediately chastise to a point where they eventually will agree with whatever they're told to agree with, right? Yeah,
we better get to a point that we hash it out and agree to disagree and move forward. And move forward as one.
I think there's a decent amount of Republicans who do that typically, but like you have issues now where, and this is both sides of the pro and anti-Trump camp, you have like the Republicans, and again, we know a few of them, who will never vote for Trump no matter what happens, no matter who the Democrats run, they will never vote for Trump. On the other side of the aisle, though, you got people who are so pro-Trump, they will never vote for anyone other than Trump. And I'm sorry,
even DeSantis, who they all loved a year ago.
I know, right? And the only one who they would vote for is Vivek, and even then, that's still kind of iffy, because there are some of the like more Christian nationalists who do have a problem with Vivek being a Hindu, even though he has answered that question, I think, fairly accurately to a certain extent. However,
I think that's overblown, and I'm not going to fall into the trap of using leftist language about the danger of the Christian nationalist.
I don't know. I've legit met some of them who just straight said they would never vote for anyone who's not a Christian. Unfortunately, I've met a few of them. It's just, and here's my thing: during the primaries, all is fair. I say you vote for who you actually want. No lesser of the two evils. Vote for who you want in the primaries. Period. Not who's the most electable, just vote for what you want to see put forward. After the primaries, though, I'm going to go with lesser of the two evils. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm going to pick the lesser of the two evils, because at the very least, that helps move the Overton window more to our side, even if it's not fully there yet, right? I mean, and that's the big thing, is moving that Overton window over. And so, I voted for Mitt Romney. Now, I can't stand Mitt Romney, especially right now. Like, he's a Democrat basically at this point, right? I mean, he's Republican in name only. He is the epitome of rhino. During the presidential election, though, I had no problem voting for him, because as long as it moved us away from Obama, that's still closer to where I want to eventually be.
His heel turn is one of the more amazing and interesting things I think I've ever watched in politics.
It proves the establishment exists, right? It proves that there is a swamp in DC.
Yeah, it really does. It will make a great case study one day when somebody has the time to actually go back and do a few in-depth interviews and get some thought processes, diaries, and whatever we can find to see exactly who's running what here. But those are the kind of things we never get access to. We'll give you access to that 70 years from now. Or
well, and you're operating on the assumption that the history will be even easy to find in the first place. Of they wouldn't just wipe it out 1984 style eventually. I mean, I think there was like a pharaoh in Egypt that we barely know exists because they hated him so much they completely wiped out like everything they could find of him. They destroyed all the all the writings by him. Do what?
That's all of history. That
For
I
a
mean,
lot of it, yeah. And I wonder, like, even with everything we have now, with the way social media can just delete things, it wouldn't be too surprising if way off in the future, if the Democrats did manage to gain full control, if almost everything on Trump is deleted. And they already called him Voldemort, right? You know, he who should not be named. Like, they have no problem with erasing him from history if they really want to, which they kind of already have when, especially on the Christmas season now, when you watch Home Alone 2, and in some of the versions, they've actually taken Trump out of it, right? They're already deleting him from history where they can.
the Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing too.
And it's
And
funny because neither of us are really huge on Trump,
no,
but
I'm not a Trump guy at all. But the derangement syndrome is just insane.
it really is.
Hey, and
But
just because I haven't said it yet this week, and I say it every week, the only sane choice for president is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis. The only sane choice.
you know,
Proven track record. He fulfills his promises. He makes Florida #1 in every meaningful category. Ron DeSantis is the only sane choice.
And I'll say it again, my vote's with the Hindu. Okay, I'm still going back. anyone
Maybe
who
I'm a
says
Christian nationalist and I don't even know it.
anyone who says they don't like the fact more people can vote and they want to stop people from voting has my vote. I just want less people voting. That's all I want. I hate democracy. I'm totally against the idea of total democracy. Oh God, I hate it so much.